The Boston Celtics were one of a few teams that massively underachieved last season. Need I remind you that this team had made the Eastern Conference Finals in 3 of the last 4 years before last season. They had extremely high hopes going into the season, and they should have. Even though they had lost Gordon Hayward for basically nothing, they still had 2 emerging superstars on the roster that they could rely on to carry the team back to the NBA Finals. Injuries certainly didn't help this team's chances throughout the season, but too often it felt like the Celtics just didn't have the energy or the fight in them like in years past. The Celtics were only consistent at being inconsistent. After a solid start to the season, they were hovering around 500 for most of the season, finishing 36-36, the perfect definition of an average team. The Celtics lost 3 straight games 5 different times, and their longest winning streak was 6 games, which was in April. That was followed up by the team losing 10 of its final 15 games to fall into the play-in tournament. Almost every team in the league can use the excuse of injuries and COVID protocols, but the Celtics had enough talent to compete for home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. After his first season with the Celtics, Kimball Walker was definitely a liability last season. His production, or lack thereof, was the main reason why the Celtics could never find that consistency they needed to go on a great run and separate themselves from the pack. His scoring continued to go down, and he could never stay healthy. He only played 43 games last season, and he missed multiple games in the series against the Brooklyn Nets. Before the playoffs even started, the writing was already on the wall because of a season-ending injury to Jaylen Brown. Brown went down with a torn ligament in his wrist near the end of the regular season, and that was the point where fans knew it was all over. It was going to be a tough task to try to take down the ultra-talented Brooklyn Nets team if everybody is healthy. But it was definitely a foregone conclusion that the Celtics weren't making past the first round for the first time since 2016. This was a severe regression from last season, and nothing close to the expectations that everyone had for this team. Many new changes needed to be made, but I don't believe anyone expected a head coaching change and a change in the front office. Brad Stevens stepped down as the head coach and was promoted as the president of basketball operations. He will be taking over for the retiring Danny Ainge, and Stevens wasted no time making some changes. This team named 7-year NBA veteran Ime Udoka as the franchise's next head coach, making him the 18th head coach in the franchise's 75-year history. Udoka joins the Celtics franchise after spending the last 9 NBA seasons as an assistant coach between San Antonio, Philadelphia, and Brooklyn. Teams that had Udoka as an assistant coach have made the playoffs in all of his 9 seasons, with one of those years ending up in the NBA championship, which was with the 2014 San Antonio Spurs. His resume definitely warranted a shot at being a head coach in this league, and he starts his head coaching career with 2 stars who are both under the age of 25. The first move that Stevens made with the roster was trading away point guard Kimball Walker. I believe this move was more financially motivated than anything. This trade will save the Celtics $11 million next season, and just $14 million of Al Horford's salary is guaranteed in 22-23. You could make the argument that Al Horford will give the Celtics around the same amount of impact if you factor in the possible missed games going forward with Kimball Walker. The Celtics made a couple of solid moves by trading for Josh Richardson and bringing back Enes Kanter to solidify the big man position. But their most significant move this offseason was signing former Lakers point guard Dennis Schroder. Regardless of what most fans think about Schroeder because of how his career ended in LA or how much money he missed out on, you can make a case that he is an upgrade over Kimball Walker at this point of their careers. Dennis Schroder is not injury prone, and he's a much better defensive player than Kimball Walker could ever dream of being. Last year it looked like the Celtics forgot how to play team defense or just really didn't care, finishing with an average defensive rating. This team did not resemble the defense-first teams that Brad Stevens had led the last 5 years. Schroeder will improve that defense as he takes over the starting point guard spot. Schroeder is in a contract year, obviously. Most of the time a player in a contract year is a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. Schroeder will want to prove that he's still worth around $80 to $100 million, and most players generally play well during the contract year. Hopefully he doesn't take away a lot of opportunities from the best 2 players to try to earn the big payday he was looking for this offseason. This may be Schroeder's first and only season with the Celtics if he has a good year with this team, because the Celtics won't have his full bird rights and they can only offer Schroeder so much money. So if Schroeder wants anything close to an $80 million contract, the Celtics won't be in a position to give him that kind of deal. This team made sure to lock up a couple of important pieces to this core this offseason. The two-way guard Marcus Smart signed a max 4-year extension worth $77 million, and it's much deserved. I could see Udoka going with Marcus Smart as the starting point guard, or he could slide him down to shooting guard and have Schroeder start alongside him in the backcourt, which I believe is the best move. Despite the fact that he's only started in 16 games in his first 3 years with the franchise, the Celtics made a big commitment to their first-round pick of 2018. The team and Robert Williams agreed to a 4-year, $54 million contract extension. Williams will share time at the center position with Horford and Cantor next season. It'll be interesting to see who gets the starting nod at that position. Will it be the wily veteran in Al Horford or the athletic young guy in Williams? And other young guys like Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith will more than likely get a decent chance to stay in the rotation throughout the year. Both guys played great in Summer League, and with their first year under their belt, they should be more than ready to bring a consistent impact for the Celtics. But everybody knows that this team revolves around their two young stars in Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. Brown officially became an NBA All-Star last season, even though he's played like one in the last 2 seasons. Last season, he finished with career-high averages in points and assists. He also shot the best percentages of his career with 48% from the field and almost 40% from 3. Even though the Celtics were around 500 for most of the year, the play of these two guys still warranted All-Star selections. Jayson Tatum is definitely a rising superstar. He amped up his scoring by 3 points per game this year, and he hit the 50-point mark on numerous occasions. He even scored a career-high 60 points in the month of April. This team has the talent to compete with the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And believe it or not, the X factor for this team going forward will be Dennis Schroeder. I believe he will be the determining factor in this team either being at the top half of the playoff picture or the bottom half. If Schroeder shoots from the outside like he did his last season in OKC, the Celtics could be a top 5 team in the East. But ultimately, I believe Schroeder has a better chance at rubbing his teammates the wrong way, and the chemistry will not be where it needs to be for this team to reach its full potential. I have the Boston Celtics finishing with the 8th seed with a 42-40 record. Schroeder will be an upgrade from the Kimball Walker we saw last season, and Horford will provide a nice veteran presence for this young team like he did last time. But the supporting cast will fall short in providing the necessary production for their two young stars in Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. More changes will be needed with this team, and Brad Stevens will have his work cut out for him going forward.